In 1917, during World War I, the U.S. Army created the first official spy service, the Military Intelligence Division, the MID. The MID was small but multiplied its force by using a domestic vigilante army called the APL, the American Protective League, consisting of several 100,000 vigilante members during World War I to, quote, keep watch over suspicious activities and to suppress resistance to the war. The leaders of the vigilantes were made official officers in the MID in an attempt to control illegal activity by vigilante mob. Many targeted individuals are also victims of organized stalking. Other terms are gang stalking, mobbing, street theater. The targets are victims of a sophisticated smear campaign to the effect that they are criminals, undesirable elements who must be driven out of the community. The stalking game uses low-level attacks such as cursing the target in public everywhere they go, bumping into them on purpose, blocking maneuvers, starting arguments and fistfights with total strangers, forced car wrecks, break-ins into steal their possessions and their personal papers, vandalizing their cars and homes, sabotaging their computer, systematic harassment at work, and noise campaigns such as blasting music from a neighboring apartment all night, every night. A symphony of attacks, sometimes 10 or 20 a day, that after a few weeks pegs the stress level of the targets at an artificially high level until they lose sleep and remain psychologically traumatized, and their work output drops to near zero. This is a strategy that might be termed the death of 1,000 cuts. These tactics are similar to the Army's use of biscuit teams, an individually tailored campaign of psychological attacks designed by a medical doctor, a psychologist, and an interrogation specialist to tailor a campaign attacking the cultural and personality weaknesses of the prisoner. The biscuit teams are using many small stress factors like extreme temperature, very cold cells, stress positions, confining one's limbs, constant light or dark to distort the time sense, sleep deprivation, continuous loud sound attacks, sexual humiliation, sensory deprivation, isolation, and constant physical threats of harm to the prisoner or to their family, and other techniques like odors and other techniques applied one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, extended over a period of time to slowly break down and psychologically destroy the subject without torturing them in the traditional manner, in the traditional sense, using electroshock on their genitals or ripping out their fingernails. Now, it is instructive to learn where the U.S. Army learned these new sophisticated techniques. By the 1960s, the Russians were worried about world opinion. They were entering into an era of détente with the United States. The Russians could no longer openly imprison their political dissidents, torture them, and then execute them, as they had traditionally done in the past. The Russian government forced political dissidents into mental institutions and used powerful experimental medications as tools to destroy them. The U.S. Army study of this process in 1972, nearly 200 pages long, entitled Controlled Offensive Behavior, USSR. It cataloged all the types of non-traditional torture used by the Russians on their dissidents. These include isolation, temperature, light, sound, sleep deprivation, sensory deprivation, fake firing squads, basically the same techniques that the U.S. Army is using today. In addition, the Russians studied the use of electromagnetic weapons on dissident patients in these institutions, as well as in the public at large. These techniques and these weapons were used to break down the targets in behavior modification experiments, purposefully turning them into psychiatric cases. It's these very same techniques used by our communist enemies described in this lengthy 1972 Army study that have now been adopted by the United States of America to be used in the global war on terror and in subterfuge to be used in the secret dirty war, targeting political activists and whistleblowers with classified anti-personnel weapons.